Welcome back to the class, everyone. When putting together a team in Galaxy of Heroes, it's really hard to forget a character like Han Solo in the CLS team because of how hard he hits. It's also really hard to forget putting Chrysanthemum in the Jabba team because of the amount of hits he can tank. But there are some characters in the game that, while they're not as flashy, they're still really important. And those are the characters that I want to talk about today. The background characters that might not be doing something as noticeable as some of the others, but are still integral to their teams that they belong to. And the first up is really the embodiment of this concept, and that is Rose Tico. Rose Tico, at face value, is doing very little. She's going to give tenacity up to a random ally, stun someone assuming it lands, and that turns into daze, and then some other turn meter things. But once we start to look at her kit in light of Zori Bliss, a character that came to the game, it's actually been a few years now, even though it doesn't feel like that long ago, it's really going to amp her up. And not only is Zori going to make the Finn team overall a lot better, but she's going to allow Rose to do so as well. So if you go into Zori's unique that you didn't bother to read because it's 10 paragraphs long, you'll see that tenacity up that she's doing on her basic that was supposed to go to a random ally, it will do that, but then it will also go to the rest of the team, because when it's applied to one, it's applied to all of them that don't already have it. In addition to that, and this is really important, it's going to allow all those characters that have tenacity up, which is everyone, a 35% additional chance to inflict expose for one turn. This is a big deal, not just because exposes actually, deal damage, but in addition to that, the Finn leadership wants to expose the enemy as much as possible, because that is going to reduce the enemy's turn meter, it is going to increase the resistance ally's turn meter, and it is also going to reduce cooldowns by 1. This actually ends up being a pretty big deal when you look at overall win rates. I believe Rose decreases all win rates, or at least win rates universally, against the team when she's set on the team in defense. A lot of people, not a lot of people, it actually is in the minority now, but one of the strategies that people are trying to use with resistance, and they have been for a while, is to just leave Rose completely off the equation by putting 2 Poe Damerons in there. And while this video really isn't about which Poe Dameron is better, you really don't want to do this because of what I just said and the amount of turn meter she's aiding to the team. I will also say, because it'll probably end up in the comments if I don't, her Omicron, I'm not necessarily suggesting you do this, I haven't done this, does actually add even more turn meter and offense to the team, making it even deadlier. One of the ways that I was recently reminded of this is when I was researching what Sith Eternal Emperor could solo on offense, and I found a resistance team, and I was like, oh yeah, he has like a 90% win rate, and then I added Rose, and it dropped down to something like 9%, meaning he was probably getting entirely looped because of the amount of turn meter, both from Rose's overall kit as well as the exposes with Finn. So very important background character for the Finn team, Rose Tico. Next up is going to be Cal Kestis. Cal Kestis is going to be a little bit more versatile in the sense that he's not just going to work on a Finn Zori team. Obviously, his main home is going to be with Seer and Malicos just because of the overall unaligned Force user synergy. But unaligned Force users, they've really run rampant nowadays. Rey being the other obvious choice because he's also light side, so he benefits from a lot of the things that she's doing. But there's even some funky theory crafting out there with things like SLKR. But at any rate, why is he good? It's not just because of his tags. It has to do with his unique ability, where it says at the start of battle, all unaligned Force user allies gain 30% health or max health and 30% tenacity. This is really cool because it's not really specifically to light side or dark side, so he's going to, again, in that Seer team, not just give it to Seer and Fulcrum, but Crew as well as Malicos will get it as well, assuming you're using that comp. And then probably more importantly, whenever an ally is critically hit, they and Cal recover 5% health and protection. If the ally is a Nufu, they and Cal gain protection up 10% stacking up to 50%. So he makes it really hard to kill his entire team. And this is even better when you remember, if he's on the Malicos team, that Malicos is a savior mechanic. So if you do want to have to burn Malicos down first, and he has lost his crit hit immunity, you're going to have to worry about this amount of recovery. Or if you want to do the reverse and try to get Cal off the team, then Malicos' savior is going to save Cal. So really, overall, Just makes for a troubling dynamic, at least for the enemy, when going up against an unaligned Force user team. And again, while these other abilities do things, most of what he's doing is bundled into his unique, which you're not really even seeing until you wonder why the fact that you've hit Rey 100 times and none of her health has gone down, because you literally can't outpace the recovery as well as the protection up that is being generated from that unique ability. Speaking of unique abilities, we have Enoch up next. Enoch is going to be more of a one-trick pony similar to Rose in the Resistance team. Instead, Enoch is probably just going to be ending in a Dark Trooper Moff Gideon team, at least in 5v5. 3v3, he can actually kind of be under his own. But why is he a good background character, and even though what he's doing isn't really all that noticeable? It's the fact that they gave him a unique that says enemies have negative 450 critical chance. That is an obscenely high number because they didn't even want any characters that have advantage to be able to be doing that. Also, it dispels advantage, so I just really giant overkill, I guess, overall. At any rate, that's really good for his overall team, and it actually becomes very relevant if you're using DTMG on defense, because AdRad is typically a really good counter, but if you completely lock Jin out of stuns for both of her special abilities, the team loses a little bit of viability. Not to mention the extra cleanse that he does bring to the team, getting rid of the exposes so you can't just get nuked by those, does also help out quite a bit. So again, not a very flashy character, doesn't do great damage, doesn't really tank overall that well, but there's things that he's doing that are relevant that DTMG really wants him to do. Next up is going to be Bo-Katan Kryze, again, more of a one-trick pony that you're probably just going to be using in a Bo-Katan Mandalore squad. She does have some use in a Scoundrel squad, particularly maybe under light side BAM, but just because she has an AoE and that can help them build birds. But at any rate, it all boils down to this text in her unique where it says, at the start of the battle, Mandalorian allies gain 20% protection for each Mandalorian ally until the first time Bo-Katan is defeated. So basically, if you're running a whole Mandalorian team, actually, I forgot about Maul as well, either Maul or Bo-Katan, it's 100% protection to the entire team, which is a pretty big deal for overall survivability. And then, whenever a Mandalorian ally attacks at a turn, they recover 8% health and protection. If we look at the Maul team that I just remembered, Maul can call everyone to assist 5 times in a row, meaning you're all the way back up to health protection several times over. In addition to that, even Bo-Katan Mandalore has a mass assist as well as can be called in with IG and other things like that. So great recovery, great survivability, and actually does boot out for the majority of the time armor on the team unless you're in a very specific match, I believe, against JMK. And last but not least is going to be Vandor Chewbacca. Vandor Chewbacca does some really cool things. He does fall off a little bit in the very end game, and that's mostly just because most of the squads he goes on just can't really keep up. But at any rate, the two major things that he's doing, and by the way, he could never take a turn the entire battle that you're seeing him on or you're using him on, and he would still be providing all this value because it's wrapped up in these two uniques. Where the first one, and this is crazy, it says he has, max protection and then gains more max health, whatever. Not that part really isn't important. In addition, all enemies deal 25% less damage while Chewbacca is buffed. There's a lot of buffs going around nowadays. It's really not that hard to get him buffed, and the 25% negative damage that he's giving to the enemy team, that's not against him, that's in general. So if you have him on a dash team and L3 is tanking all these hits, the enemy has to then, on top of, getting through L3, who's already really tanky, they have to overcome another 25% damage reduction. And then, even when they can get through L3 or whoever, Chewbacca is also going to revive light side Scoundrel allies, assuming he's prepared, which are using him under a dash squad in GAC, and you have the Omicron, then he always will be. He can also just be in other squads and do other things. Obviously, he has a lot of really good tags. The Wookiee tag, obviously, for Tarful. The Mercenary tag for Balin, he is going to lose a little bit of viability, actually quite a bit of viability in there, because as we said here, this is for light side scoundrel allies, and in fact, I don't think Balin's even a scoundrel ally, he's just an Ufu mercenary. So not doing as much there with this unique, but the beast unique is still relevant. He's still decreasing overall damage by 25%, so he can swap between these squads if you need him to, and if you really just don't have a better 4th or 5th for that team. So this really wasn't meant to be a totally complete list. So let me know in the comments what other characters out there that, again, aren't necessarily doing a lot of damage or maybe even tanking a lot of hits or have like a glorious leadership, but are still pulling a lot of weight for their individual teams. But until the next time, thank you guys for watching and stay awesome.